probably my worst experience was I had a company commander who said, officers should do every duty of every enlisted man in my infantry company. So one day I got to pull point, the lead man on a 100-man infantry company. Unfortunately, on that day, we were in a bamboo thicket. So as far as I could see was how far I could put my hands in front of me and park the bamboo. So yeah, that's part of that 10% not so hot.
Right. I'm sure you formed lasting friendships in the service. Do you still stay in contact with any of your friends?
That's one of the nice things about the service is you move around a lot, so you make friends very quickly. You have to make friends very quickly. And so now my wife and I consider that we have friends all across the United States. So we can jump in a car or jump in an RV, and we got places to go and people to meet and reacquaint with old times. So yeah, that's one of the benefits of the service. You get a lot of friends.
Do you get back to Pennsylvania very often?
Near zero.
Yeah.
For weddings mainly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's it.
Eric, tell us about the mission in 1968 for which you would receive the Silver Star. Talk about that mission.
Tough one. The evening before, we were out on patrol, and one of the platoon leaders saw some green lights, which was what the North Vietnamese Army used for flashlights, a green lens on it. And so I called in an artillery mission, lights disappeared, I stopped the mission. We bedded down for the night. Next morning, we received orders to proceed directly to an artillery unit that the intel said was going to be overrun that night. So we started on our way, and about halfway there, the company commander said, you know, where you shot that mission the night before, why don't we go in and take a look at it? I said, I don't think so, sir, because we're supposed to get directly to that artillery unit and dig in and help repel the attack that night. And obviously he was the company commander and I was the FO, so we investigated. We sent a squad in, and the squad got ambushed. And we sent a platoon in to get the squad out, and the platoon got pinned down. And then we took the whole company in, and much to our dismay, we found out we were up against a North Vietnamese battalion. So we were outnumbered 3-1, and it was a classic U-shaped ambush. And when we were inside of it, they closed the door. So for the next 4 hours, we were surrounded, pinned down, and I had an artillery mission going before I even got inside the U-shape. So I had the artillery in pretty close, but it was bad, and I called the artillery into what is called danger close, within 25 meters of the friendlies. And I would keep moving the artillery around the outside, trying to form a wall of steel around the very small perimeter we had. About a half hour into it, the division commander showed up, the 2-star showed up in his helicopter because he was concerned. Within about an hour, we had the corps commander floating above us. And by the end of hour 1.5, we had the MACV commander, the 4-star, circling above us. And their fear was this was going to be the first time that a U.S. infantry company was wiped out entirely by an ARVN unit. After about an hour, the Corps commander called a broken arrow. Broken arrow was the code word in Vietnam for a unit's about to be overrun. They get all available fire support in theater. So I already had the artillery gone. The Army gunships were rolling in, and at that point I had Air Force and Navy close air support stacked up above me, and we slugged it out for 4 hours. And that particular day, that was the longest continuous danger close mission fired in the 1st Infantry Division. 4 hours long, 4,000 rounds, and between the napalm and the 250-pound bombs and the 20 mics off of the gunships, we pretty much took it to a draw. They couldn't retreat, and we couldn't retreat. Now, I was the target. I kept moving around the perimeter, trying to adjust artillery. And I had one of those love-hate relationships with the infantryman. He loved to have me there because I was the guy keeping the wall of steel around him.
Right.
But he hated to have me right next to him because I drew fire. And so all during the day, the North Vietnamese were tossing hand grenades in, shooting RPGs, and I got wounded numerous times, but they were minor wounds at that point. But finally they caught me with an RPG to the head, and it was lights out. Now, the rule was that if you did not have a trained artillery observer, you could not fire danger close. So they shut the mission down, and the 18 guys that were left melted into the jungle.
Again, what part of the part of Vietnam was this?
This was northwest of Saigon in a place called the Hobo Woods.
Okay.
How it got that name, I'm not sure, but it was not jungle, but it was dense woods.
Eric, how would you describe to young people what it's like to serve in war, and the thoughts of you have possibly being killed or wounded in battle? And of course, you certainly endured that.
Let's see. I think everybody I knew was constantly afraid. But the difference for a soldier is controlling that fear and doing your duty. So I can assure you I was afraid nearly every day that I was in Vietnam. But you did your mission. The number of people who see combat in the military is only 1 out of 10. And the number of people who are in combat that come up against something like that's probably 1 in 10 of those. So I mean, it's a very small percent that ever have to face that. All those people behind me, all those artillerymen, all those logistics folks and everybody, we wouldn't have survived that if we hadn't had them. So all those people that were supporting us didn't run into that type of activity. Is it a little bit different today because there's no front to any of these wars? It's certainly